Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz, and our very special guest today is Nick Groff, veteran paranormal investigator whose credits include Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Lockdown, and can now be seen on his new show called Death Walker, available for streaming on Film Rise. And all three seasons worth. You're not just going to get an episode here and there. So, Nick, thank you so much for being our guest. I love the T-shirt, by the way. I'm a big Warriors
Thank you.
fan, huge
Appreciate it.
Warriors fan. How you doing today, Nick?
I'm doing great. Everything's going good. Yeah, I'm just excited to finally be able for everyone to experience Deathwalker, and now everyone can see it on Film Rise, and it's just an exciting time in America to finally be able to release it.
Exactly. Congratulations on the new show. I've been watching you for well over a decade, following your career with the start on Ghost Adventures and then into Paranormal Lockdown. You've produced a lot of stuff. Uh, in the beginning, with season one of Deathwalker, you give us a story on what intrigued you into the paranormal, about you watching a specific show where you saw somebody get attacked. Do you mind sharing that story with our audience so they can hear it as well?
Yeah, on a show called Sightings, I saw the Sally House episode, and it was I think close to October, probably around 2004, I think it was, and that really intrigued me further into understanding how can something from beyond actually physically harm the living. And I really wanted to know, I wanted to see it, experience it. And ever since then, I just kind of set on a quest to look for the paranormal and see if I can document it. When I was a kid, about 8 years old, I had a near-death experience, and that kind of put me on my path to looking for the supernatural. And as I grew up, I was interested in UFOs, extraterrestrials, and over time, I just started documenting my own footage, and that kind of turned into a documentary. And then from there, the rest is history. I just started creating and going to more paranormal locations to investigate and turn into ongoing series.
And look, 18 years later, I mean,
I
it's
know.
it's amazing how life works out. Now, season one starts out with, well, in all three seasons, you and your cousin Justin. Just the two of you. Did you two start this on your own? Let's say, let's go to a couple of houses, locations, let's film it, and then just see where it goes. Or did you
Yep.
guys have a more detailed plan in mind?
No, that was kind of what it was. We wanted to put a couple of theories that we had to test and compare two locations to see if they can kind of have the two theories in a narrative sense, kind of validate some of the evidence that we were collecting. So that was kind of the first pilot, I would call it, first
Mm-hmm.
5 episodes. And then over time, we wanted to see a little bit deeper and more hard hitting, which was like season two, is what we're calling it, the Sally House episode, where I was finally able, after all these years, to go back and investigate it. So I was very excited. I slept there. I stayed there for a couple of days, and I've never experienced something like I did at that location. Actually, having physical scratches show up on my body as we're actually filming it at the same time. So that was very amazing. So we kind of take this narrative approach where it's an overarching throughout the whole series. So in season two, it's something, can something physically harm the living? And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we go after over the course of 15 episodes. And then in season three, we go after, can something overtake your mind, body, and spirit? So it's this really interesting overarching story, and then over the course of 20 eps in each season.
Now, going to that original theory that you just mentioned, that you mentioned in season one, where the paranormal can very well be uh, not only another dimension, but us, past, present, future, all combining, overlapping, and we're just hearing echoes. And I've thought about that as a possibility even before you mentioned it. And the truth of the matter is, we don't know. Okay,
Right.
uh, you you and other paranormal investigators get intelligent responses. Is that theory still open for you, that it could be a time dimension thing where we are hearing echoes either from the past or to the future, maybe of ourselves?
I think so. I think we always have to keep evolving our minds. We can't be stuck in one scenario where we have to say, oh, that's what it is, X, Y, and Z. I think that's the problem when science can't prove that it's something by just dissecting it and saying right in front of you, this is what it is. It becomes unexplainable. So I think we have to theorize in order to understand, what are these possibilities or what else is out there that we're missing. So, yes, I still think about it. I still think that there are time slips. I think that sometimes with who we're communicating with on the other side could actually be living still
Yeah,
in their time, and then here we are in our reality, and that's kind of meshing two times together. Because the notion of time doesn't necessarily exist because we create that as human beings
exactly.
as we get older. So we have to kind of put a time to sense with work, with scheduling, with school, kids, stuff like that in our everyday lives. But ultimately, I think it's very fascinating to think about the concept of time slips, how we could be interacting with people from the past, present, and us in the future, or whatever you want to declare, or whoever's in the future, or alternate worlds, or, timelines and stuff like that.
My theory is, and I've never had any personal experiences, I just been watching you guys on TV for a really long time, that it's not just one single thing. I
Mhm.
think it's a combination of things that are happening. Now, each investigator has their favorite go to tool, device to use. You use the Geoport, not only in Deathwalker a lot, but a lot also in Paranormal Lockdown. First of all, explain to our audience what the Geoport does, and why is it your choice of device to use in investigations?
Yeah, so I was using that a couple years ago. I started using the Geoport a lot, actually on Paranormal Lockdown. I had it custom built. That specific device was made solely for me, just based on some ideas with EMF, electricity, and vibrational waves. So I had it developed, they made it, and it was really fascinating. What I learned is because I'm a very logical thinker, so I was like, okay, what's going on here with some of the intelligent responses? But I started to realize that there's a medium, in a sense, attached to this device on the other side that's communicating with other spirits through that device. And I
Okay.
really believe it's some sort of entity that's still attached to the device. And that's why I started using it a lot because I was getting these really highly intelligent responses to my questions at very haunted locations. And I was even digging into some of the history that we didn't even know that was giving us answers that I would pass on to historians that didn't even understand how I was able to pull that information, which was really fascinating to me too. So that's why I started using it a lot. I started steering away from that a little bit in the previous seasons of Deathwalker
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to try new experiments, new devices. I'm working with more people involved in ITC, instrumental trans communication,
Mm-hmm.
real spiritual communication, moving away from apps, moving away from like Bluetooth type devices, so we can look at vibrations, frequencies, and I'm using new gear now and new equipment that's solely being built for Deathwalker.
Yeah.
So I'm working with some really great engineers and people of like minds that are enthusiasts of the paranormal. And I,
That's
I just want to test new things. I want to
absolutely.
evolve,
And that's exciting stuff. Do you believe deep down inside that eventually our technology will reach a point that we are going to get a definitive answer on what this is?
I personally don't think so. And the reason I do right now, or maybe the next 100 years, possibly, is because I think there is no right answer in a
Yeah.
sense. I think that's for us to figure out because you said it perfectly earlier, John. You said that there's multiple things that happens. And I think that's the problem. We're looking for one thing that happens,
Yeah.
but ultimately I think there's several different things that happen. And I think it's a transitional thing for our period of our life. So, I could 10 years ago, I had a different perspective on life, death, the journey, where I was in life, my perception on things. Everything changes as you evolve as a human being,
Absolutely.
depending on what path you choose, your choices you make, what ripple effects your own universe you live in,
Yeah.
the world we live in general, and everything else in the atmosphere and environment and stuff that circles around this kind of vast universe. And I just think that things are constantly changing, technology is constantly changing. Um, there's too big of a divided in humanity right now to
Mm-hmm.
all come together and say, "Oh, let's think as one thing happens."
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest problem is there's multiple things that happen when you pass away, not just one thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be amazing. It would make it very fascinating, but I think also it could cause some sort of ripple effect with human beings, meaning like, you had this kind of hierarchy happening here, this pyramid effect, and
Yeah.
it could cause chaos.
Exactly.
If
I don't think
all of a
right.
sudden like this is what happens, everyone's
Yeah.
like, well, forget this religion.
I don't
That
think
would be
right now
bad.
we're ready as a species to
So,
really understand that. Now, you not only in Deathwalker, but always the term energy is used. And in a Deathwalker, you use it a lot in saying how the energy has shifted. For those of us that have not experienced the paranormal, the best comparison I can use is you're in a room full of people and somebody walks in who's had a really crappy day and they sort of let out this negative vibe into the room and you kind of pick up on it. Is that what it feels like when you're in a
100%.
location and you say the energy has shifted, has become negative? How does that exactly feel?
Yeah, you worded it perfectly. It's like if you and I were just hanging out, John, we have great energy, you have good positive energy, and then all of a sudden someone walks in the room and it's just like, ooh, we both are like, "Ah, that person just seems
Yeah,
off." It's the same energy when you're in a haunted location and you're investigating, and then you feel that like empathic, like negative presence just move through your body, or you just feel that there's something that's not right.
yeah,
It's the same scenario. You just got to look at it as good people pass away, bad people pass away. It depends how their intent was in this world when they were living, and do they still continue to put out that and resonate that energy? Is it still that nasty kind of energy that was lingering with them when they passed away?
yeah.
And I've experienced a lot of that, and it's just that's one thing that just bothers me sometimes is at these locations you'll feel this like spine tingling, like just kind of claw or hand like latch onto your spine, and you just feel like, oh man, it kind of treats you as a puppet, or it's trying
Mm-hmm.
to like use you to be more negative, and you feel that, you feel it
Yeah,
in your brain, your soul, you feel just this negative presence. And to me that just feels dirty, and you just
yeah.
want to get away from it. That's why sometimes at locations when I'm investigating, I'll put my back against the wall, so they can't try to attach like that. Um,
It must be
so it just has a
super
weird feeling.
scary. Now,
It is.
part of your job as a paranormal investigator, I would assume it's really high on the list, is to determine if something is residual or intelligent. Okay?
Mhm.
Is it just residual, meaning just the emotions that have happened at a location over the years, playing over like a record again? Or is it something, a being there that is intelligently communicating with you? So when you're asking a question and you get a response back, and you're trying to validate that response by re asking the question, if we play devil's advocate here for a second, and let's
Yeah.
put our position, our place into the spirit's position, is it like, well, I just answered them. I'm not going to answer it again. I mean, that's sort of a, you're caught between a rock and a hard place on that one. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those situations that if I'm going in to document whatever paranormal encounters are being claimed from, eyewitnesses to managers and so on, but also I'm going in to try to experience it and document it because I'm looking for paranormal phenomena. So I think sometimes when I'm redundant, I'm looking for those questions or those answers, and if I don't get it, it's kind of like, okay, maybe they didn't hear me, or maybe I wasn't. It's the right place at the right time, paranormal. So I'll be redundant. I'll say that, but yeah, I could see it being irritating at times. I have had where like spirits are like, "Shut up! I heard you the first time." So I'm like, "All right, my bad." So I totally understand that perspective. I try to be respectful to that manner too, just to remember that I'm not just this guy running around these decrepit locations. There were people that lived here and died here,
Yeah.
and possibly they still can hear me, and I just have to still remember that, they were once people too. And, you just kind of have to treat them the same way. So it's hard to define like residual sometimes. But you kind of pick up on it. You kind of pick up on the residual energy of something that, like you were saying, that's just like a record looping. And it's just this continuation of this location releasing, a door shutting, knocks,
Yeah.
phantom footsteps is a big residual energy that I always see happening or hearing. And then the voices, but I think the voices are so random and so like, out in left field that
Mm-hmm.
it has no relevance of like your questions. So I kind of look, it's like fishing. I'm looking for that intelligent response. Once I get the intelligent response, I'm like, oh, there you are. Do you want to talk
Exactly.
to me? And then they start communicating.
Now, when people start to watch Death Walker, they're going to see a progression from season one. Season two, the team starts getting bigger. You bring in Tessa Del Zoppo, a medium, and then it evolves even more into season three. How did that evolution happen from season one to season three?
Yeah, I just want to evolve where, the first 5 episodes were like pilots in the sense where I was
Mm-hmm.
looking for different theories. Second season, we went into, can something physical harm the living? And then as we progress, we just started evolving the new technology, bringing in different people like Bloody Mary, voodoo
Yeah.
priestess down in New Orleans, or now my wife Tessa, which is a medium, and bringing her in with her abilities to tap into more insights that we don't fully have all the understanding of the
Wait,
research and
Tessa's
stuff.
your wife?
Yeah, she's my wife.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep,
All
yep.
right.
We
Okay.
were engaged when I first started the Deathwalker, right in there, and then we got
Okay.
married, and
All right.
yeah, the progression.
Okay.
So Myrtle's Plantation, I got engaged to her after Myrtle's Plantation, so that's why when you see her in it, we weren't engaged yet. So it's really funny. And then I'm trying to think of the new. You'll see a ton of locations in season three,
Mm-hmm.
like the Tesla, Nikola Tesla's
Yeah.
building there, Adams Power Plant building in Niagara Falls, New York. I bring her in. I bring Austin in. I bring Steve in, both engineers and stuff like that, and like-minded enthusiasts in the paranormal. And we're trying new technology, new audio devices, um, and just stuff like that. Trying to test, what are we missing?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at ITC, real paranormal investigating, and trying to just think outside the box to see if we can not miss anything. So we try to look at all aspects of stuff from mediumship to paranormal to equipment to experiences.
What's really interesting about Deathwalker is that when you're getting responses through the Geoport, you guys actually subtitled the responses, even though you may not have heard them in real time. But we see the responses in real time, and we know it's very difficult for you to hear it happening in real
Yeah.
time. What are your thoughts when you go back and you review the footage and you actually hear that you did get a response to a question that you asked, but it was just not very audible at the time? Is there frustration that you feel like, damn, I missed an opportunity there to expand on that question?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, when you're there in person, you're hearing it happen, and you're having this experience. I do miss a lot when I'm listening to it because it is happening live.
Mm-hmm.
But when I review it, I can like slow it down, or I can play it over and over again. And then that's where I'm picking up on it. I'm like, wow, that's what it said. And then it makes sense to me what was happening in that moment. So it's crucial to review all the evidence. That's why I do it myself and Justin. I'll have him watch it too, and because I want to see what he hears, compared to what I hear. Because if it's too hard, if we're both debating on what we're hearing, then we just kind of like, all right, then nobody's gonna hear it.
It's
So we
inaudible,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah, it's an audible, so we just cross it out. And it also just goes to possibly what the story is, what are we documenting, and maybe it doesn't make any sense, but maybe it might. So it just has to be really clear. I think clear enough where everybody can kind of hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes it's hard to hear coming through like different TVs and stuff, but um, we try to keep all the best evidence
Yeah.
in there that will be the best presented, as far as like paranormal goes.
Now, people are going to notice when they watch this, you really open yourself up and give permission to these entities to physically harm you by scratching you. Is there any part, I mean, watching this, you know that's like rule number one, don't do
Yeah,
that, protect
yeah.
yourself. So you're putting yourself out there for the purpose of gaining evidence. Is there any part of you that's worried something may follow me? I have a family, I have kids, I have a wife. What
Hmm.
goes through your mind when you're opening yourself up like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know what I'm going into when I'm walking. I'm calling upon it. That's what I'm looking for. I try to do it in, the most respectful manner. I'm not running around like crazy. But I think ultimately you have to have a well balanced life before you go into any location like this. I mean, just the psychology behind it, it can mess with your head. It can
Yeah.
kind of like get into your psyche and stuff and disrupt your life. So I try to balance it, try to stay healthy, work out, release some of that negative energy that's lingering. I work really hard and not bringing it home. But you just have to invisibly like close that door when you walk away from
Hmm.
locations and just really stay true to yourself and be a good, decent human being and don't let it disrupt your everyday life. You know, I
Exactly.
think ignoring negative is better sometimes than feeding into it. I think when you start feeding into it and you know it's there, then that just grows on you and that just becomes something. You know, it's all about
Absolutely.
intent.
I
So
totally agree with you.
that's how I kind of maneuver through my life. It's
Yeah,
the best
no,
way. It's
that's
different for everyone.
yeah. Now we're out of time, but I do want to ask you one question. Another thing I learned about you watching this show is that you are a big horror movie buff.
I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's take modern day movies, paranormal movies in particular. I picked two very popular movies. Let's see which one you like better: Paranormal Activity or The Conjuring.
The Conjuring.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for a bigger budget,
Yeah.
it's scarier. But I
Yeah.
also love Paranormal Activity. I tried to
Me
pick two
too.
that would be tough, but I'm with you. Definitely The Conjuring.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's a good one too is Insidious.
Oh
I think
yeah,
Insidious gets overlooked a lot. That's a great film.
that is a great film.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Nick. I want to thank you so much, guys. Again, the show is called Death Walker. 3 seasons available now on FilmRise. FilmRise is available on your mobile device, Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV. Get it, watch it. All 3 seasons, which are like 45 episodes approximately, are
40X.
available for
Yeah.
you to watch. It's a great show. Check it out. It is hosted by Nick Groff, executively produced by Nick. His cousin Justin, cameraman, also right there with him the whole way. Thank you, Nick, so much. Look forward to watching more shows. You have any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
I appreciate all the support and all the love people. I can't believe how big it's blown up over the last couple
Yeah.
of days. It's crazy how fast it's spread on the internet, and you know I really appreciate everybody supporting it. It's been a crazy journey, and we're still making them. More Deathwalker episodes coming.
I really believe that you are really popular because one of the reasons you are really popular is because you are authentic, sincere, and you just care about the evidence. You don't try
Yeah,
to
I
over
appreciate that.
dramatize it, you don't try to under dramatize it. This is what I have. Okay? And I think
Exactly.
that's what really attracts a lot of people. So good job on that. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much for being our guest. I want to thank our audience, those of you who are tuning in live, and those of you who'll be watching this later on. On behalf of Nick and myself, stay safe and stay walking. Bye, everybody.